Yeah, it's like I was looking at it and I was looking at those cities really close to the fort, and
Yeah.
I'm like, those look like enemy fort. Those look like enemy cities, right? I'm not reading this wrong, where allied
Yeah.
non-coalition cities are not in yellow or something. And I'm looking at all those cities close by. I'm like, they really should not let them get this fort drop off.
I'm kind of surprised because they put up a good. This is holy crap. This is so far from the past. I, I I'm actually kind of surprised. Like, how are they letting this happen?
The only thing I was confused by was I was watching Kane's stream and I saw this other group of enemy troops like somewhere else,
Yeah.
and I couldn't figure out that if they were walking here from like another zone or what. But
Yeah, because this is like deep. I mean, this is like a disrespectful fort drop. You know, what's happening?
yeah, like when you guys so when we fought against you guys, Bus, when you were in
Yeah.
2268,
Yeah.
there were some fort drops that you guys did where I was like very nervous.
Yeah, but
then there were other fort drops like
yeah,
those were close by that I got nervous on. But when you
Yeah.
got there were a couple where you dropped them like really far away, and like you freak out for like a minute, and then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, cool. Like
these guys are just wasting credits here.
yeah, like here's a chance for us to actually get a good trade against
Yeah.
SV68 for once.
Yeah, but what the hell? I mean, all right, we'll see what happens. This thing should be. We'll find out whether it's over or not before the stream's over. All right. Anyways, let's see. What's up, guys? Okay, so for the people that are watching, can you say something, Brian?
Hello. Testing out the proper modulation.
Can you guys
Let's try to
hear
stream.
me, Brian, and the music? And can someone let me know? This is a very disrespectful fort drop. I can't believe one, they tried it, and it looks like they're actually close. There's no music? All right, let's see what's going on.
Oh, this guy Drunken Gao is right here. I mean, like, look at the boats. Look at the two boats. Look at the two enemy boats right next to this fort.
Yeah, they're right there. I'm like, looks like they have a decent amount of field here.
I mean, they've got literally like 5 boats within like a one screen proximity of this fort.
Actually, how have they not popped this? How's this gone on for like 2 hours? All right.
It's actually looking much more iffy at the moment.
Yeah. All right. I don't know if I want it to pop or not. Obviously, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of rooting for 1981. But also, this is like, if this drops, I want to say the KVK is over, but I don't know, man.
Probably so. Yeah, probably so.
All right, is the music, guys? Is the music? Can you guys hear the music now? There's music. Okay. All right, cool. Okay, so let's actually get started. If you guys don't know, I feel like kind of rusty. If you guys don't know, we actually did a podcast about 2 months ago. I want to say Panther with a 5 gifted. Thanks, Panther. Yeah, we did a podcast about 2 months ago talking about kingdom building, right? So that was when literally we just took control of the kingdom. We haven't gone into KVK yet, right? So we discussed a lot of things. I think it ended up being like a almost like a 2-hour podcast, right? We talked about a lot of different topics, but also one of the things was, okay, here's all this theory. Now let's actually try putting it into practice. And then we had always planned on doing a follow-up one, right? But our KVK is essentially over. We won, and we'll talk a little bit about it. And then I think, Brian, you guys are in KVK, and you said there's probably still more fighting, but you won your first zone, right?
Yeah, we won Zone 5. We're doing the King of All Britain map, and
how's that map, by the way?
Then
thoughts on it?
It seems pretty good. I think it's a lot like Heroic Anthem in that you do the Zone 5, and then there's a big delay, and then you do like a Zone 7 pass fight situation, and then you go into Kingsland. I think what makes it better than Heroic Anthem is that the Zone 5s are much more important because the holy sites are very good.
Okay.
the center holy site gives 3% all damage in zone 5.
Oh wow. Okay, so it actually matters.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's also like some march speed.
Okay. And then I mean, a little off topic, but I guess related. What would be your like top, like your favorite maps to play, or that you have played?
You know, I would maybe rank Britain #1 because
Really?
I don't like the super hardcore maps.
Really?
You know, I mean,
like
to me, I mean, I think
Strife or like Warriors Unbound or something.
well, like Strife of the Eight.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to play Warriors Unbound again, but Strife of the Eight, Siege of Orleans, I would say those are two pretty like hardcore maps. I think Stratagems is actually, I would probably rate Stratagems #1.
Okay.
Britain #2, and then I would be fine saying Strife is #3, although Orleans, Strife, you know, I would say Strife has a better balance, but I like Orleans because it's not quite as long, quite as hardcore as Strife is.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone say they don't like Orleans. Even if someone doesn't say that's their favorite, I feel like it always comes up in like a top 2 or 3 at worst, you know?
Well, but no one, it never gets played anymore.
Really?
Like I haven't seen a good Orleans map in a long time.
That sucks. Yeah, so so you don't like the what is it about the hardcore maps that you don't like?
Just that they're so demanding. They take so much time.
That's actually the part I do like. That's crazy.
Yeah. No, because it just affects your life so much, and yeah, I sort of enjoy the week-long wars rather than a 2-week-long war.
Yeah,
it just feels a lot different to me.
I don't know, man. This thing looks like it. Oof. All right. Okay, and then so just kind of I guess like introduce 1770. Obviously, it's like an older kingdom. I feel like you guys are decently well known.
Yeah, I would say we're a kingdom of medium notoriety. We're an A kingdom that has been around for a very long time. Our one alliance now is called the Handsome Devils. The Handsome Devils has been around for 6 years at this point. The leader has been the same person the whole time, Adi Navo. I've sort of been second, third in command that whole time as well. We have an international group and a Korean group, where the Korean group has their own leadership, their own recruiting, and we are a high A kingdom that has 4 stars and has fought in a number of very competitive KVKs over the years. We won a 2 versus 6 Strife of the Eight a few years ago. We beat 1818 in Orleans about a year ago, and then also had a upset win against Bus Driver's Old Kingdom, 2268.
That's where we first met.
Yep.
Very annoying to fight against you guys, but obviously, out of all the kingdoms we fought against, I think I would say 1770 was probably the one that earned our respect the most. You know, not that the other ones didn't. Just like, you have to have a #1. It was you guys. You guys deserve the star. That's all I'm saying. But okay.
Yeah, okay. We've got 4 stars, but I think we're the kind of kingdom where like the stars don't always tell the story, right? There's some kingdoms in this game with 6 or 7 stars that have
that are
had fewer tough wins.
Yeah, that like there's a lot of kingdoms with 6 or 7 stars that, like, if you give me the option to ally with you guys with them, I would definitely pick you guys. Put it that way. Okay, and then so then since the last podcast, right? You guys are in KVK now, right? I can give us a little recap or update on where you guys are at.
Yeah, so we registered for KVK for the new King of All Britain KVK. It was our first time using the domain system, so we had 600 cities, 600 City Hall 25 cities that allowed us to qualify for the domain system. We registered 270 of those cities for this domain, and we registered in a pop that had 2377, 1365, etc. in that queue. We were fortunate enough to not get put into that very big Britain KVK with 2377. We're in the second tier KVK there with a bunch of other A kingdoms, all about our size.
Okay, so you didn't want to be in that KVK with them.
No, I mean,
Okay.
I think we took a gamble for sure.
Yeah.
And we always gamble and have sometimes lost those gambles, sometimes won those gambles. And we, listen, we've had tough KVKs for a long, long time. Like for the last like year plus, we've had only hard KVKs where we were the underdogs. So it was very nice to be in a smaller KVK for once. When the passes opened, I actually joked to everybody. I said, everybody have fun. I want to let you know that this is the first time in over a year that we are not fighting against an Arvix when these passes open.
Oh my god, there's 8 freaking kingdoms in your camp. Oh my god. How does it...
No. We're actually in domain 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We're in domain 2. So
let's see. Okay, so this 3. All right, that's 8.
Yep.
8 kingdoms in a camp. I don't know how. All right, let's take a look. Okay.
Yeah, so I said we weren't fighting an Arvix, and then about 8 hours into the zone, I looked at the Autark leaderboard, and there was in fact an Arvix.
In
first place.
Oh god.
Yep.
All right. So this, oh wow, this King's Land is tiny too.
Oh, I didn't notice that yet.
Well,
that's a very small King's Land.
Compared to
that stratagem,
that stratagems one that we fought, and that was so freaking. That was the biggest King's Land I've ever seen. That was probably like what, like four times the size. Like,
it's got to be at least 3 times the size. Because I remember zooming out on it, and it like took up more than the entire screen. Yeah. I would, you know what? I definitely rate stratagems above this after looking at the size of this King's Land.
Okay, so you do like a bigger King's Land?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Okay, so is it looking like you guys are gonna win? You're not sure yet. Like, how's that going?
We won our zone after about 1 day. Our allies won their zone after about 3 days. So we are looking very good. I will say that at the moment, our alliance is not in the main coalition. We dropped out of the main coalition earlier today. One of our allies is a Chinese kingdom, 698 or 689.
Oh god,
They're all Chinese kingdom.
1698. Wait. Let me.
Yeah.
What's your experience with them? They're like, oh no, they popped this fort. Wait.
Oh.
Wait, hold on. No, wait.
I should go back and watch.
No, they didn't pop it. They look like they're about to pop it.
They're gonna pop it. That's getting popped.
Yeah.
That fort's getting popped.
Yeah, it's like so laggy. I can't even. Oh yeah, they're swarming it. It was a good run, guys.
At this point, the momentum for the enemy here is getting better, right? The people who are hesitant to pull their marches out are now starting to see like, we have the field.
Looks like it popped. I mean, to be fair, that was a very disrespectful fort drop. Like, this thing is like on the back corner. It was over here. Like, yeah, that'll be crazy if they actually pull that out. All right.
That was good content. Good content for sure.
It was fun while it lasted. Oh, they still have people here. All right. Okay, yeah. So sorry for cutting you off. So you guys won. Your allies won, and there's only 4 camps, right?
Yep, only 4 camps on the King of All Britain map.
All right,
which is cool. I don't know how you feel about it, but I think 4 is pretty good actually.
I feel like I think what we prefer is a little different. Like, I like mayhem. You know, I like I just play 15 hours last like 3 days, and then there's all kinds of stuff to do. So yeah, so like 4 camps for me is it's not as fun. And also with 4 camps, right, you could have, I don't like it, especially with the way things are now, you could have one kingdom like decide to sit out or do something, and then the balance is all thrown off, and then the KVK almost like becomes a wash. Whereas like when you have more kingdoms evolve, to me, you could have like a shenanigans happen with like one or 2 kingdoms, and it could still be a good KVK, you know.
Yeah. That makes sense to me. That does make sense to me. I think for me, it's just because we've been in so many tough KVKs and been an underdog in so many zones. The zones that I've really enjoyed recently are just these Zone 5 openings where it's a fair fight, and you can just sort of see how strong you are compared to another kingdom of your size.
Yeah, like you get to fight someone 1v1 or a camp 1v1.
Yeah, you get to fight someone 1v1, you know.
Yeah,
and
I actually like that a lot,
yeah. So like last KVK we fought against 2975 in that first zone.
Yeah.
They might have felt like they had the disadvantage because we had a strong campmate, but we also had like a very good opening. We got our forts down. We popped some of their forts.
Oh God.
And you know, it was just like it's nice to outplay somebody.
PTSD. Thinking about that.
Why?
I mean, you saw what happened to us when I was at 7 Open. There's no fight.
In your KVK?
Yeah, when we were allies, that last KVK.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was PTSD. All right.
But see, that zone was such a stupid zone though. Like we fought 2975 in a zone that's cool, a straightforward zone 5 with lots of space. You fought them in a zone that is just so silly.
Yeah, I mean, like, to recap for the people that don't know, you know, you do the pass opens, right? You do the swarm team and everything, and some random free-to-play guy came in and like jumped in on the pass right, like at the perfect time, because the pass was low, right? So he didn't die, but he also was just like occupying a spot. And then I think he eventually died or something. We ended up maybe being like a minute and a half or something behind. And like my job was to drop 2 forts, right? Now I'm just watching 2975 drop the forts right where I wanted to drop them. And it was just a shit show from there. That was probably like for like a 30-minute to an hour period, like the worst experience I ever had playing Rock. Like it was, I don't think I've ever felt so defeated in like such like a compressed amount of time playing. So yeah, so like I before I'm like, oh yeah, fort drop, you know, like whatever, it's cool. But now it's like, dude, like someone could literally just mess it up and just ruin your KVK, you know, like it's pretty high leverage. For at least for Invictus, like the way it was set up, in my opinion. That was bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think Invictus is just like a bad map that is probably just not going to get played much at all. Because, you know, in King of All Britain, for example, and I don't know if you watched any of the Chinese server KVK that myself and Apo streamed, but the thing about the All Britain map is that basically you can reach all the forts that are in the center of the zone. The passes are kind of like centered, and so you can reach the midpoint of that zone 5 very quickly.
Yeah.
And so in both our KVK and in the Chinese KVK, every fort that was dropped in the center of the map got popped. Every single one. And they got popped with plenty of time to spare, right?
Right.
So that's, if you can get a fort up in those conditions, then that's like a very legitimate win.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do. And
interesting. Okay. All right, so you still like stratagems the most, but King of Britain maybe second, or Orleans.
Yeah, Orleans or Britain. I mean, Orleans is a good map for sure. It's just, you know, I haven't played it with CY in the game yet, or with Scipio, the rally Scipio.
Have you seen CY in action?
Oh, yeah, definitely. We use
disgusting.
CY quite a bit.
I think he's the best garrison in the game by far, right? So something that I think people don't take into account. So the way he works, right? He might not trade the best, but to take that garrison down, it's going to take a lot longer than any other garrison without CY in it. And then the only way to bring it down really fast, right, because it's going to be annoying because it's going to drag it out, is you have to swarm. And then obviously when you swarm, the counterattack goes through the roof. Like he's probably like, I don't think, I'm not really big into rally garrison, but like he's the first garrison commander. After I saw him, I'm like, oh my god, like I actually really want this commander just for my wall. Like, and seeing him in Arc, seeing him seeing when people try to do some stuff when we had him in a flag, and then us trying to, like, CY is disgusting, and the reports don't even tell the whole story. You know, I can't believe they released something that that OP. And I don't know, it's really good.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up some reports now. We had more CYs than the enemy did, but the other thing, though, to me, is that Scipio Aemilianus as a rally is also an upgrade to the existing meta. And so at least they've made the rallies better as well. And so I don't think it's that out of whack. I think, honestly, CY needed to be added to the game because, number one, there's things like Surging Strike. There's things like all the auxiliary skills in Orleans that makes swarming so strong. The swarming meta is so incredibly strong.
Oh, yeah.
And, so we're in an artifact KVK with CY. So we not only have CY garrisons, but we also have Gorgo Attila garrisons or Attila Gorgo garrisons.
Yeah.
At the same time, there are rallies like Scipio Aemilianus, Attila Secondary, or Asher Tariq, that are either very nasty against just a garrison. Like Asher Tariq is very nasty against a Gorgo garrison.
Asher Tariq, damn. That's how I think about that for a bit. All right.
Yeah, I mean, and well, because it does so much, it debuffs normal attack damage so much. And so, like, you have better rallies and more robust rallies in terms of anti-swarm.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I feel like there's so many things that you could do in Orleans. It's actually, I don't know. Have people like kind of like figured out like the best stuff in Orleans? I never played it. I've always heard it's just crazy, but it's like a Wales KVK because all the auxiliary skills and stuff.
I haven't played Orleans with the latest meta rallies and garrisons, but it was just a swarming. It was an open field KVK.
Yeah.
It was very much an open field KVK. But I can't quite think about how like the auxiliary skills would explicitly affect garrisons. I mean, obviously you could add stuff like Charles Martel's counterattack damage to any garrison.
Yeah.
But it just pales in comparison to all those auxiliary skills on
the offensive side.
Yeah, on the offensive side.
Yeah, I mean, that was a feedback for the first Orleans, right? Just unless they get that under control, like there's just no point. Like you can't hold up. Whoever wins field wins in Orleans. I don't know if it's changed at all. I've just never played it. Okay, so let me just talk about 3092 for I mean, it's my channel. I would think people would know, but it's obviously a newer kingdom that we just moved into. About half of us are from 2268, and then obviously we brought in a group, and then we just had our first KVK. We won. In retrospect, I kind of wish we did the Diplo a little bit different. So there's 4 camps, right? Us, we're Win, and then Fire. On paper, we're about similar. Like we were like the strongest. So our camp, like we were on paper the strongest kingdom. Then we had 4 campmates that were not as strong. Whereas Fire has like 5 kingdoms that are pretty well balanced. And we were not confident at all because we have about 50 active players, right? And then assuming all these kingdoms have like more players, right? And then obviously like with less players, we have a downtime, whatever. The swings are really big. So the 2 allies, there was a one that looked stronger and one that was weaker. We ended up with a stronger one. But the KVK actually ended up being not that challenging. Like we were actually way stronger than we thought we were as far as, like fighting people. And it ended up being a KVK where for most of it, people were avoiding us unless we did disrespectful 4 drops. And then we ended up essentially popping like getting a successful 4 drop off in the enemy zone 7, and then they kind of gave up after that. So I kind of wish we chose a harder one, and that's actually probably a good first topic. Like what are your thoughts on diploing? Like, do you think what's your ideal kind of diplo?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you this exact question, whether how you felt about the heroic anthem, choosing that to go first, because it looks like you've had about five kingdoms per camp here,
Yeah.
so like sort of a B seed style KVK.
Yeah.
Listen, I personally think that a KVK where you give yourself a slight edge in the diplomacy and you go into it very confident that you're going to win, and then the enemy fights you hard the whole time, but you kind of know you're going to win the whole time.
Okay.
To me, that's the most enjoyable KVK.
That's your ideal. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
That's my ideal. We had that about a year ago when we fought against 1818. We were campmates with 1718, which is like a super, super strong Korean kingdom, like maybe the strongest one alliance Korean kingdom. And we were against 1818 and 1903, but we were like, this is a very organized Korean kingdom. They're going to bring out the best in our Koreans. We're probably just going to win this thing,
Right.
So we fought for like a week. Yeah, we just felt good the whole way. And it was just like relaxing, chill, but also engaging and lots of good fighting. That's ideal for me. And so to me, what you did was pretty smart. Like you guys, this was your first KVK. You did a very quick pop. So you probably didn't have all of your resources squared away. You probably had some people who migrated in who wanted to see what you guys were all about.
Yeah, we've never played together before, right? So like even the leadership structure was kind of getting set up as far. I mean, there's a leadership structure, but then it was more like starting to figure out who like was good and preferred what roles. So like there was a lot of figuring this stuff out, getting the shells ready. Like we migrated in, and then like 3 days later, the pop ended, and like we're officially in matchmaking. So yeah.
Yeah, and just getting having good vibes right off the bat, I think is very good. I mean, first of all, you have like these new leaders who are given R4. They're sort of maybe being expected to set markers, maybe not. But if you have sort of this winnable KVK, then they can like set some ball markers in their first war where things actually go well. My thing lately that I'm having sort of struggles with and PTSD about is it seems like every time I set a ball marker, we gather up and get wrecked. And it's like, okay, did I put us in the wrong place? Did I not motivate us hard enough? Like, am I doing something wrong that we're losing all these fights after I put people in a ball? So to get people off to the right start with that stuff, I think is good, And if you had lost, for example, if you'd done a tough KVK and lost.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? So I think for this one, well, I mean, I was already planning on doing it, but I'll be like very transparent about like kind of our thought process where we're at. So with a new kingdom like this, the worst thing, I mean, I'm sure I could think of something worse, right? But like one of the worst things I could think about at the top of my head is you get a little bit too cocky, right? And then you take an L. And then it's like there's a real chance it's just over, right? Because like for me, when a kingdom dies when you cross over like a psychological threshold where not enough people like believe in a vision or that the kingdom can actually do something and go somewhere, right? So like that was probably the primary concern. Is okay, like it's important for us to get a win for this first one. My personality, I'm very like I'm a very aggressive, right? I like stuff. I like taking on challenges and stuff. But like logically, I understood that, and then in retrospect, playing it out, I don't know, because 68 they've been fighting a lot of tough KVKs too, right? And I don't, and that's the one where it's kind of hard to tell, but because it didn't seem like we should be that strong. But in the KVK, it almost felt like we were like way too strong to be in that KVK. But like on based on stats and the number of players we had, like it didn't seem like it should have been that way beforehand. Right? So it for lack of a better word, it almost feels like kind of for a lot of the people in the kingdom, it feels like we got like KVK blue balls, because essentially we just won almost too easily in a lot of scenarios, and then we were just getting cheeseburger or like these kingdoms would just fight our allies, right? But then as soon as we go over there, they would just disperse and go into their cities, and that was a lot of our experience, like this whole KVK, right? So in retrospect, I kind of wish we took on paper the weaker camp maybe, and to try to get like a more fun fight. But also like at the time though, like if we did that and then we ended up losing, I mean the kingdom could have been done before it really got started, right? So that's kind of like the risk reward, where the risk versus trying to get a fun KVK. So that's where we're at. So anyways, we ended up winning, and then I guess to say right now, right, we're we're not drained at all. We're looking to go into the next pop, and then we're actually of the mindset we're gonna, instead of trying to like, you know, kind of like what you guys talked about, like, you know, you take a risk, like we're, instead of trying to avoid certain kingdoms that go into a map, right? Hopefully there's like fun maps, right? So like the ones that you probably don't like Strife or Warriors Unbound or, you know, Orleans, if it comes up and there's like enough like kingdoms in there, we'll just register for it. And then I think like reading the people in the kingdom where they want, we want a fun map with like challenging fights, and it's okay if we lose for the second one, right? Obviously we're going to try to win, but like the mindset is very different for this one.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys need to find out where you are, right?
Yeah.
You know, a tough KVK is where you'll find out where you are, what you have.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, to respond to a couple of things that you said, one thing you said was that you feel like when a kingdom shifts emotionally to thinking they can't win, that's when things are over. I see it. I look at it a little bit differently. No, I look at it as players.
I don't mean like the KVK. I mean like believing in the future of the kingdom.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I interpreted you as saying.
Okay, yeah.
But for me, it's the players, right? For me, it's like when really good players start to leave, that's when a kingdom is going in the wrong direction. And then you're like immediately weaker, right? If one of your, if a couple of your top 5 players, or let's say like 3 of your top 10 players leave, you will feel that so profoundly in your next KVK, right?
Yeah.
You know, like one of your top 5 voices in voice chat and one of your top 5 rally leaders, let's say both of those people leave.
Yeah.
You just feel that so hard, right? And then maybe you play a little bit worse the next time, and then more top players leave. And then for me, that's really when the kingdom goes downhill. I really see it as like the top end players are the key to a kingdom. If you have that, you can always grow. If you don't have that, then
I know. Trust me, I get it. You know, when Peacemaker retired, it was devastating. Now, like something else if it also matters too, right? So for us, we have like about 50 active players, right? So when 3 top players leave, the impact is even like bigger than if you had 100 players and 3 players leave, right? So like that's just something where like I'm not gonna lie, like it's when you're like a smaller kingdom that's like trying to build and grow, I feel like we're in a more precarious position, right? Because a lot of time, like some of this stuff is just out of your control. You can actually be doing a good job in the kingdom that's be building, and then someone, you know, something happens in real life, right? Their business goes under, or someone gets a girlfriend and gets married, and then all of a sudden he's not interested in the game anymore. Like, right? Like there's actually a lot of, for lack of a better word, like landmines that are out of your control, right? Especially for a smaller kingdom. It's I'm not gonna lie, it's a little scary, right? Now, the way to kind of counter that, in my opinion, is if you have some kind of advantage or built-in ability to recruit. Because if you're losing those players, right, but the kingdom and then you and then the people around know like, hey, but like we can actually replenish and we have a chance to keep growing, you can kind of mitigate that a lot more than like if a kingdom has a hard time recruiting, I feel like the impact of that is felt even more.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, our recruiting in this offseason was not quite what we wanted it to be. I've been trying to get to a similar point where you're at, where you have a really robust infrastructure through your YouTube channel. I bought a domain that will be sort of a, you know, website for 1770 recruiting, but then got busy and didn't have time to actually set up like a application form for that website and do those sorts of things. Yeah. So in that sense, you know, we weren't able to do like the the wide net type of recruiting that we would like to do, because I think if you cast a wide net, you can potentially bring in some really quality players that you otherwise would have no access to. At the same time, what we were lucky to do was we brought in a handful of players, but I would say we brought in 2 players who are, you know, one is for sure a top 10 player. You could say that maybe both are both top 10 players. They're both former leaders of their kingdom. One is a former R5 of a kingdom who actually stepped down after a tough KVK. Said, I just can't do, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And he knew me from my YouTube channel, and he came into our kingdom. Another player is a former, I think she was an R5 of one of the alliances in 1846. Maybe she was just like a key officer in one of the 1846 alliances. And she also just wanted a slightly smaller, slightly more relaxed experience. Yeah. She came based on a recommendation of one of our whales. And so we didn't add a lot of players, but we added like 2 really good voices to voice chat, and also people who are like doing stuff behind the scenes. This player from 1846, she's actually tracking the forts that we do on a daily basis and stuff like that. Yeah. So, and then we also had like Popo 2 KVKs ago, who's also a top 10 player. So like we've just added like probably 3 top 10 voices to our voice chat every time in a war. And would I rather have 10 good players or 3 really good voices? I mean, I'd probably rather have 10 players, but 3 top 10 players is like a good compensation prize.
Yeah, I honestly, with recruiting, I think my perspective on it has changed a lot in the last 3 months. Because like if you want to distill it down, right? Like one way to evaluate a player is just how much value that player is providing, right? So before, I would say I probably overemphasized the player's ability to individually perform on the field. And then as I've gotten more into like leadership and kingdom building, so you just realize having the voices like you talk about, the players that are active, say in Discord, or like that they're for lack of a better word, part of like a core group. Like if you can actually keep building the core group, right? Like that's where you could do like really, really great things that are above maybe what the stats even show. Whereas we could get to this a little bit, or we could talk about it now, right? I don't know if you do recruiting for your kingdom or not. Maybe a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Over the last like 6 months, I would say there's no stats to back this up, but just like I think I've noticed that there's a lot more accounts that are bought. Right, so like 6 months ago, when I'm talking to players, it was like less common that an account was bought, whereas now I feel like 70% of the accounts were like bot accounts, right? So it becomes
holy,
it's crazy, and it becomes like really, really hard to evaluate the player, right? Because so we kind of have to start adapting, like we're changing how we're evaluating the player, but personally, where I start putting more of a emphasis is okay, like how active and how well would this player like fit into the kingdom, but also maybe like be like part of like a core member where like day to day they're in Discord, right? Like they join in voice, they're providing value in different ways, and then like maybe the stats don't look as good as say another player, but for me, like if a player is like there all the time and like you count on them to show up and they're going to be there, they're going to follow up, they're going to do what they're supposed to, like I think I valued it, but I value that so much more now, so and it's just really, really hard to evaluate players now compared to even like 6 months ago for me, because if they purchase the account, right, with their gifted account, whatever, everything in their account, like you can't use it to actually figure out how they are as a player. Whereas before, okay, like this person decided to go this route with the equipment, whatever. They've been, their accounts this old. This is about where they're at, right? Like you can guess their spend, you can guess their like how in depth they follow the game, all that stuff. But with a bot account, like it's just really hard to do that eval.
Oh, definitely. And I'm thinking about what I would be looking for if I were trying to evaluate a player who, I mean, let's say they say that they bought the account, right? Which I would imagine some people admit they did, and some people admit won't give that away.
I think I don't
most
think
do.
I think everyone does. I don't think I mean,
okay.
It's like
okay.
it's like I don't know. Maybe someone lied to me, but I feel like more like about 70% of the people that we talk to are probably have a bot account, and the ones that have the original account, I don't know. I don't really suspect that they bought it, because it's not something we shame or anything. We just want to know so we can know like how to kind of like counter. How to take their stats and everything into account, or like where they're at, right? Because we want to know, hey, what are you doing for Crystal Tech? Like actively all that kind of stuff. So that's what it seems like to me. There's a lot more accounts changing hands now compared to 6 months ago. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Someone from Lilith comes like, that's not true. Like I wouldn't be able to argue against it with stats, but that's the feeling I have with recruiting. But,
I mean,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, some of those players can be very valuable, right? At the end of the day, if you're a smart gamer and you decide that Rise of Kingdoms is interesting, maybe you start a brand new account, play it for a while, get more involved in the game at that point. The smart thing to do is to buy an account, right? It's not to just slowly grind up your account for 3 years.
It's the way smarter thing. It's a way smarter thing. For every $10 I spend in this game, if I bought an account, I could get that value back probably about like 1 to 2/10 of that. Right. So if you want it from like a financial standpoint and also a time standpoint to bypass a lot of that, like buy the account. And like a lot of those players are really good. Like what I'm saying though is that it because a lot of them are bought, you can't really use stats and like KP and all that stuff like the way you could before. And even before, I was probably overrating a little bit. Like you talked about the person from 1846 and the other one that has R5 experience. They're doing the Fort Tracker, right? Like they're like one of the top 10 players. It's just by their presence, their voice, they're there. Like those things are, to me, are very, very valuable, and like they go beyond the stats, right? And I don't, like I feel like. For example, you talk about those two players, right? If you can get a migration with say like 10 of those players, so you added like 10 more like core members to your kingdom. To me, that's a very good migration for most kingdoms. Because imagine if you had a kingdom like 120 of them, right? And then you have 120 of those people in voice. Whatever your stat is, it's gonna outperform most kingdoms that have similar stats, because they don't. I just don't get the feeling that most kingdoms have like that kind of like core player base, right? They have a number of players, but we all know like in whatever kingdom you have, like what's kind of like the core group, like when you need them, like they're the ones that show up, they're the ones that are there, they're the ones that will step up to do the little things. They're not going off like chasing KP or whatever, getting their stats and making goals, right? They're doing the stuff that's like helping win. So with bot accounts too, it's almost like what I'm saying is like it's shifted for me where I almost like actually value that the most. And usually those players will at least do a decent job with their account anyways. So you don't even have to worry about their equipment, the armaments, all that stuff, where they're spend, where are they grinding and chaining to get their Crystal Tech to a certain spot. Like they're kind of like they'll take care of themselves, right? And they're actually adding so much more value that it's like really, really hard to evaluate.
Yeah, and with these newer players who come into Rise of Kingdoms, on the one hand, what I would be asking is stuff like, well, do you use a mouse and keyboard? What's your past gaming experience? And so if I was on a voice interview with somebody who's like, I've played ROK for 6 months, it seems like a cool game, I just bought an account, I use a mouse and a keyboard. I used to play League of Legends. You know, I'm 25 years old. I have a good job now. I would initially think, okay, this is a great candidate. This is someone who could probably within 6 months become an extremely good player, like extremely good player.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, Rise of Kingdoms is a brand new type of game. We've never had a game like this before. I mean, you could say EVE Online is somewhat similar, but hardly ever anybody played EVE Online, small player base.
Yeah.
So you don't know that those players are actually going to still be interested in this game 12 months, 18 months from now. Yeah. I think it's still worth the gamble on them, because even if you get them for 6 months, then that's fine. You know, you get them for 6 months, they burn out, you throw them in domain 2. I mean, it doesn't even matter. But, you know, yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a few things that you said there, like you said that you know, a lot of accounts are being bought, but also that a lot of these kingdoms don't have X amount of players. Yeah, I mean, we kind of stepped down a level in this KVK, and like our opponents were really strong for about 12 hours. Yeah. They were a mostly German group, and so they were in their uptime and they had huge numbers. We were kind of in our downtime because most of our camp is Asian, and they were kind of pushing us back. They had very good field. I was a little bit demoralized because it just feels like we're always losing in the field when I'm setting ball markers.
Yeah.
But then, like, they just went to sleep. Like, they all just went to sleep. And I guess we just overran them at that point. I went to bed because I was like, all right, looks like it's going to be easy mode for a while. Yeah. And I woke up and the zone was completely over. So
they were winning field and then just went to sleep and just lost the zone?
Yeah. Basically.
Which is like... yeah, that's like... I mean, you know, me saying this is not going to change anything. Like, I kind of wish there was no piloting in the game. And I know that's not going to, like, piloting is just going to be a thing. Right? Because like, that adds another component where, like, if you're like a free to play or like very low spend, you can literally out hustle someone. And you could bring a lot of value in that way. Right? But whereas, like, with piloting's, like, around that, you can't even out hustle someone that, you know, can just have highlights and have an account that's online 24/7. And like, that's honestly probably just as big of a gap for like the very, very top kingdoms with the other kingdoms. It's not even so much that the accounts are so much better, it's that the amount of pilots they can actually get to keep those accounts online, like even like a slightly lower tier kingdom, they just don't have the amount of pilots to compete, you know. And I kind of wish we didn't go down that route, but, you know, we're already down that route, so they can't change it now, I think. But I mean, you have a kingdom that's winning, went to sleep and just lose the zone, like. And I'm not even saying you guys are using like pilots necessarily, but it's just like,
no, we literally had like the same number of we had the same number of players online for like the entire 24-hour period. It was pretty wild, right? We had like not huge numbers at the pass opening, and then the numbers stayed steady for like the entire zone.
Yeah, and like that kind of actually is, in my opinion, the which is why you want like challenging KVKs, because there's something about like going through like a very challenging experience, working together as a team, and then that camaraderie, right? And then like, especially like if you end up coming out on top, winning, whatever, that like, you know, like there's that, to me, that's the most fun part of the game. You know, it's just like the you know, you don't know if you're going to win or not, right? Like 50-50, maybe you're at a slight disadvantage or a slight advantage, but you have to actually grind through that, like those hours. And then, you know, like, you know, you have a general strategy going in, and obviously, you know, things start popping up, you have to react to it. And then it's like, who outplays the other person, who outlasts the other person. And kind of going back to the recruiting stuff, you know, like having those people that are like key voices that are actually there, like having all, like, the more of those people you can have, like the more enjoyable it is to be in that kingdom, but also retention, right? Like player retention, like all of that goes through the roof when you have more of those type of players. you know. So, by the way, you guys are feel like you're one of those players you're watching. Maybe 1770 or 3092 is for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Also,
Absolutely.
Panther, thanks for the 5 gifted, and Farmer, what's up? Good to see you again.
Where's Farmer these days? Did Farmer migrate?
She's in. Is it 2885 or something?
Okay.
28.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that. I think it's 2880. Yeah, 2885. Yeah.
All right. I'm not too familiar with that kingdom actually.
There.
You know, one thing.
Fluffy Pony had an alt there. I think that's why they know. And then I don't know if you know Dom.
I think I've heard of that player.
Yeah.
Okay, AK85. I think I've heard of Rick actually. I think I remember Rick from a video I made a long time ago. You know, one thing I learned from streaming the Chinese KVK is that their kingdoms are not any bigger than ours. They have a bunch of One Alliance kingdoms as well.
The Chinese servers?
On the Chinese server. Yeah. Yep. And so, you know, at this point, everyone's operating as a One Alliance kingdom. Yeah. And then pilots are a big part of the game. And so it's kind of this thing where you have so much and you have farms supporting those main accounts. So you just have so much effort being put into the main accounts that you have. You have these like very experienced players who have built up their accounts for a very long time. In many cases, they have their own pilots secured, and they have farms supporting themselves.
Yeah.
And you have all the benefits of a strong kingdom, you know, boosting them up as well. The top ones get selected for domain 1. Everybody else gets shuttled off into an alt domain.
Yeah.
And
I
think that's the way the game's going to be that way for a while. I think we've kind of reached like the end state of the game, honestly. Because it's kind of convenient.
Yeah. Why do you think it's One Alliance kingdoms now for the most part? I have a theory, you know, but like I like to hear your thoughts.
You know, my first answer would just be that it does seem convenient. It's a pretty good way to work things. Like for us, the domain system is like fine. We're in a comfortable place. They've also now added each player having like individual passports getting refreshed in the Alliance shop. So even casual players can potentially move around from one kingdom to another. I think that it's easier for everybody if it's just a One Alliance kingdom.
Yeah.
I think there's just so much overhead and extra management for multiple alliances.
Yeah.
That it's just easier for everyone, and there weren't that many people who wanted to have this game be like
a job,
a corporate seat. Yeah. Like it's one thing to have like a part-time side hustle as a job, but it's another thing to be like the corporate CEO of a Fortune 500 company as a second job.
Yeah.
And I think if you were running one of these big kingdoms like Save in 1365 or the leadership in 1093, maybe that became a little bit too much for most of those kingdoms. But what do you think?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple factors. The first one is that, you know, like as the game has gone on, right? You start figuring out more and more things that you can have to do to make the kingdom run well, right? So if you maybe go back like 4 years ago, like what it meant to be an R4, like leadership and like what you had to do versus like the stuff you have to worry about now, there's just a lot more now, right? So if you're not doing that, then you're falling behind, then the players go to another kingdom. So you're almost forced to do it, right? So maybe you didn't have to do as much before, and then you have to do a lot more now in leadership. And the more like there's different levels of thresholds, right? Like for example, if you have 30 people you have to manage, right? The amount of work is like X amount, right? But if you have to manage, say 100 people, right? Like there's just a lot more work. Once you have to start going outside of an alliance, so now you have to try to manage 2 alliances, right? There's double the amount of events and stuff like that. Obviously, it's not going to be one person doing it. You'll have like 2 different leaderships, but if you have one leadership group managing one main alliance and one leadership group managing another alliance, it starts becoming a lot more complicated, right? So like you don't get paid for, like you're literally paying money into this game, and then you're doing this job that you don't get paid for. right? Like human nature, just it makes sense. Like, well, okay, probably the natural cutoff is probably going to be at one alliance, because when you want to go, like, it's just, is it worth it, right? Like, what's the, like, because what's the trade-off? Okay, you have more numbers, your kingdom will be stronger than another kingdom, but then what's Lilith going to do? They're just going to 1093 you, right? They're just going to put 1960 and 2489 in a camp, and you're actually getting punished for doing the harder taking the harder route, right? Like making your kingdom individually like really, really great, but they're just going to put two kingdoms in one camp against your one kingdom. So I think those factors contribute to that, the one alliance model, right? And unless something changes, I don't really see it. I don't see kingdoms going into more than one alliances anytime soon. But there's just no incentive. Like, even from a matchmaking standpoint, there's no incentive, right? Like, if anything, you're more likely to get screwed if you have two alliances.
Yeah, I think coordination is not necessarily more difficult with more. Let's think about what the advantages would be if someone went to two alliances right now. So they would be able to coordinate a little bit better, I think, in most KVKs. Yeah. Like, we have real coordination problems with our campmates in this KVK, where we all speak different languages and all come from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
But see, to me, the division of labor is maybe a little bit better in a two alliance kingdom, because you have two leadership groups. And so if those two leadership groups are like genuinely distinct and handle their own business, then you are sort of dividing the labor up, where at some hours of the day, one alliance can push the objectives. At another portion of the day, the other leadership group can push the objectives. I think that is a good division of labor, but of course, those two leadership groups can simply operate as part of the same alliance as well. They can combine forces. I think one thing that has happened with this game at this point is that, leaders have come to really respect one another, and they understand how much goes into it. And so if you can find someone else who will share some of that high pressure workload, then you are very grateful for that person. And that person, if they're coming from a different situation, they have less pressure than they used to have, they have less workload than they used to have, they sort of appreciate the fact that they can still play a role, still make some decisions, but they don't have to do quite as much. We have one player who's like the leader of another. He's the R5. I guess it doesn't matter. We can say who it is. This guy Evicted, who's the leader of 2956. Mm-hmm. He's like he's built a really, really strong small A kingdom there, or small B or big B kingdom in 2956. He'll jump on our voice. He'll help us out. Adinavo has helped him out at times as well. And it's like, you scratch my back, I scratch your type of thing, with like a very high talented individual.
Yeah.
And so I think that has happened in the game. I think also, though, what's happened, and you said that we have to do more stuff nowadays than we did 4 years ago. I think maybe that's true, but I also think the game has gotten a little bit dustier. I think kingdoms have gotten a little bit dustier. We've seen 1365 in their current KVK. This is a supposedly big KVK that 1365 is in. It's the biggest KVK they've fought in a long time. And what I'm seeing from them, this is just my opinion, what I'm seeing is that they chose to... Well, I guess were they not able to fight 2377 in the first zone? I guess they couldn't.
I mean, the drama I saw was no. I think you get to pick which zone you want to be in.
Okay, maybe they picked a different zone to where they're not going to be right next to 2377.
Yeah, the drama was I forgot who was accusing who of dodging each other. I saw it on Facebook, but they're like, yes, you dodged us, you wouldn't fight us in the first zone, which like it would actually make sense, right? Like, why wouldn't you just like get matched up with them right away in the first zone?
1v1, I think 1365 is like they're like a solid kingdom, a strong kingdom.
Yeah.
But like we're all a little bit dusty at this point. So 1365 was kind of like, hey, we're gonna fight 2934 and 2293. That's a winnable, manageable fight for us.
Yeah.
We'll win that war. They actually got a good solid like 4 or 5 days of fighting there. I think now they're burning the fort wall.
Yeah.
And so they got a manageable win that they can feel good about against two tough kingdoms. And then so they're a little bit dusty in that sense, where they're like not really even going for the win in that KVK. They're just sort of like managing the situation.
So Toby says 1365 actually picked their spot first.
Oh, they picked first. Okay.
So then 2377 didn't pick to be next.
Oh, interesting.
Interesting.
Okay, so I take that back. I take that back. Anyway, I'll give an example of how we're dusty, like how my kingdom is dusty, right?
Yeah.
So like in this King of All Britain KVK, there's stratagems, but you have to buy each stratagem individually with coins that you earn.
Yeah.
And before the first zone, there's like very, very few ways to get stratagem coins. You basically have to enter this Sunset Canyon like event where there's like a 2-day window to join that event. And our alliance did not notify our players of this event. We did not notify each other of the importance of joining this event. Our alliance also did not tell our players which stratagems to buy going into the first zone. You know, there's the one heart, one mind skill that boosts rally strength for every march that you join. And that's like a great stratagem to put on all your farms. A kingdom that was very well prepared for the first zone could have gotten all their farms with that stratagem and really boosted their rallies.
But it's also like a brand new map, right? I don't like how many people.
It is, but like, to me, that's the kind of thing where we should have been on the ball and prepared our players for that. We did not do that.
Yeah.
But like a kingdom that's really on the ball with everything and is like giving very good coaching for like all these new changes.
Yeah.
All the new maps that are coming into the game, the new commanders. I mean, you know, kingdoms could have prepped people for how strong Ragnar is. They could prep people at this point to say, hey, you should probably save your gold heads until we see how this commander swap feature is added. Like, we're not sure what'll qualify, so maybe hold your heads for now. I think there's a lot of coaching that kingdoms can do that we used to do, and we don't really do it anymore. And so I feel like we're also kind of dusty.
Yeah.
And so I don't, you know, I think there may be more that leaders have to do, but at this point, because A, we're so experienced, and B, like everyone is just so entrenched in who they are that maybe some of us have lost a bit of our edge.
All right, it kind of segues into the next part. We're only on topic 2. It's fine. What would you say? What do you think about like a kingdom identity? And like, well, like what's 1770s identity? How do you form the identity? And then we just talk about that.
Yeah. So, you know, for me, the identity that is relevant is really like how you fight.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are identities in terms of like the vibes on voice chat and stuff like that. And, you know, so some voice chats can just mesh well with people differently. I would say that we're kind of, well, vibes-wise, I wouldn't want to characterize us, but as a fighting unit, I would say that we...
Oh, it's Big Kane.
We are a defensive unit, and we also are very good at flag building. We rely on territory building and defense and 24-hour coverage to find an edge against an enemy. The main thing is finding an edge. What do you as a kingdom do that gives you an edge in war? What do you do as a kingdom that fits the style of your players?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say that is our identity, is to play defense and use territory and time zone coverage to our advantage.
That would be my experience with you guys. So fighting against you guys, the experience is like, I mean, it's like, I mean, you already mentioned this a few times, right? Like it's not like you guys aren't necessarily like super strong in the field, but it's like you're going to be very, very strategic in how you go about things. And it's just like, how do you slowly like chip away here and there and just to like wear us down, right? And that was my experience fighting you guys.
Yeah, I think we've, you know, what it worked for us really is once some of our newer players played with us once or twice and they got a sense of our identity and they bought in, you know, like Algebra, who was in the chat earlier. He he played with us when 1 or 2 KVKs. And I remember one night on voice, he was just saying like, man, we play so differently than everyone else.
Yeah.
And then later on in that KVK, he started to get really focused on building up his farms and having more farms ready for future KVKs. And he actually like advanced our thinking about what like an ideal farm is based on his theory crafting about the style that he almost inherited by joining us.
Yeah.
And, once you just get more players to buy into a style, that's when it really works well. I mean, other kingdoms do things differently. I would say like 1824, playing against them a lot, I have sort of seen their style, which is like very open field heavy. Like their offense is based on open field, but their defense is based on open field as well. They're not going to be a team that necessarily fills garrisons over and over again, even when they don't have the field, but they're going to just like make sure they have the field, so you just can't attack them at all. What do you think, Bus? I mean, like, are there any kingdoms that you see as having like a really clear identity, and where do you see 3092 going in that sense?
So, I mean, you want to contrast, so like your style, right? 1770, 1824. I don't know what 1824's identity is, right? But like, I think we could say it's not like Rally Garrison is not like where they like really focus on, right? Like they just don't want to do the field. Now it's fun. It's more fun, right? Like being able to open field and like especially when you're winning is really fun. But like if you can't win the field, like you're cooked. Like a kingdom with like 1770s profile, you guys could literally beat kingdoms that are quote unquote stronger than you on the field because you can outplay them. So like that's at least like from the outside looking in, kind of my assessment of like the two styles. I don't know ours because we didn't have a challenging fight, which is why it's important to have challenging fights so you can start figuring stuff out, right? I do know something we brought over from 68 is like the community, like the activity in the Discord. And people saying like stupid, like like joking around, talking about stupid stuff, but the community aspect is very, very good. And what I hope to see for 3092 is that we're a very like tenacious kingdom, right? You mentioned a Chinese kingdom. I don't think this is actually the one, because someone posted a Chinese kingdom that the one I was thinking of was 1698.
That's who we're allied with.
Okay.
Yeah, we're allied with 1698.
Okay. So you don't have to say your experience with them because they're your
well
allies.
I'll give an update. I will. Okay. Can I quickly update and say that we have rejoined the main coalition?
Okay.
During the course of this stream, we rejoined the main coalition.
Yeah. So 1698 is, I mean, they're Chinese kingdom, whatever. They were very, very frustrating. They were like, my native kingdom was 2844. They were our allies in our KVK 5, I think. And we were very happy to be allied with them because, like, from our standpoint, that's our first time, playing in a real like KVK that's outside of our continent. And then their stats, right, like their power, their KP look really great, and like that. Their one alliance like was very impressive, especially for like a newer kingdom. They fought 1862, right? Pretty much to like it was like a standstill for about a day, maybe two, and then literally just stopped fighting. They just gave up after that. They're like we're drained, right? And then just didn't fight for the rest of the KVK. And then we never made it to Kinsland. It was it, right? When our strongest ally just gives up, like it's just over. And I don't know. I've always had like a very negative perception towards them from that experience. I don't know what your experience is, but like huge downtime, and almost just like just fighting just to get some stats, but not really interested in actually like playing like winning, like playing winning strategies, like working with your allies and campmates to try to win. That was my experience with them. So
well. I mean, speaking about styles, right?
Yeah.
Like kingdoms are formed, their styles are formed partly by the player base and partly by experience.
Yeah.
And I mean, just imagine being a Chinese kingdom on the international server. I
Yeah.
mean, most of these Chinese groups have moved on and play on the Chinese server now. There used to be
Yeah.
tons of strong Chinese groups in this game. They didn't disappear because we were beating them. They disappeared because they went to the Chinese server. Like, imagine being this group that's still here.
Yeah.
That is very isolated at this point. You know, you almost never are campmates with anyone who speaks your language or has cultural similarities to you. And so they took coalition lead. They've just held on to coalition lead the whole time.
Yeah.
And so like they're kind of like, you know, to me, if I wanted to be charitable about their style, is they're used to being on their own. They're used to playing in smaller KVKs where some of the kingdoms are not very effective, and so they sort of just like keep control for themselves and try to control their own fate in that sense.
Yeah, I'll put it this way, right? I haven't fought both of you guys. They might be able to beat you guys in the open field, but like 10 out of 10 times, like if you guys are fighting 1v1, you guys would beat them. You know?
And, I mean, they're holding coalition lead, but it's kind of like, should you have this much ego?
and like that's where like the tenacity comes in, right? Because like like, you know, they might spend more, they might have whatever, but like when it just comes to like almost like a toughness, and then you know, obviously, you know, you guys are very like strategic in how you go about things, like the chip away here, they're like I talked about earlier, right? I don't know what our identity is yet. It's kind of like the sell, right? It's like, hey, you know, we need more core players to join, and we kind of like grow into it, figure it out. We're gonna take fun and challenging KVKs, and like through that experience, we start figuring that stuff out, right? Like the community part, I'm not worried about at all. Like it just like even as like a quote unquote newer, smaller kingdom, our Discord is already very active with how many players we have. So and like that's gonna grow, right? But like I don't know, we need a challenging KVK. We need to struggle a little bit, maybe even lose, but like work together, you know, like run and like figure out like what we're gonna be about, right? So I actually don't know yet. I'm very excited to find out for the next KVK, personally. Now, as far as like a style, the one to me that I've always been the most impressed with was 1093, right? And like when 1093 is open fielding, you know, especially when they had a lot more people, like the organization, like when the ball, like the way the ball moves together, how tight they keep it, how people don't like flare out like and do stupid shit. Like I don't think I've ever seen open fielding that clean before. Maybe like 3 KVKs ago or 4 KVKs ago at this point, but 1093, right? Like maybe that was like, I don't know if that was prime 1093 or not, but that has always been like the one I've been the most impressed with. And like in the back of my mind, I've always thought, okay, one day if I want to be part of Kingdom and we want to get on that level, like what is it that we can do to make our open fielding that clean and organized, right? And I think it's like a couple parts. Like one, you just want the right people, right? Like instead of having to tell people to fucking follow the markers or listen and get in voice, right? If you get people that are naturally already doing that part will be very easy. But like war leading is also like an art, you know. Some people just have like, you know, there's like it's like calling plays in football or something, right? Some people just have a feel for it. They have like a calming effect. They actually get people to want to like listen and push together. And then a lot of it is like identifying people that are good at that kind of stuff, putting them in the position to do it. And then I think that would help a lot too. But if you ask me like what I would like for 3092 to be the identity, one, I think like community, having like just good people that enjoy being around each other, that actually have pride in the kingdom. That's super important. Two is that we're, you know, the opposite of the Chinese kingdom I was just talking about, where like these guys are not gonna like go down without a fight, right? They're, even when you think they should give up, they're just those assholes that'll hold on a little bit longer to see if they could salvage it. And then like three, like where the stuff we do like makes sense, you know, like nothing drives me more crazy, especially, you know, you were talking about like betting on sports, right? Like I love especially college football, nothing drives me more crazy where when like coaches are doing stuff that doesn't make sense. You know, like because if you do something that makes sense and it didn't work, I can live with that, right? But when you just like you don't manage the clock right, like you call a timeout when you shouldn't, and like you literally piss away points, like that stuff really frustrates me, right? So we can actually always be doing stuff that makes sense. So like if someone's like, why did they do that? They don't need me to explain it to them. They're like, okay, I could see what they were going for there. That's actually probably a good call, and then it just didn't work. And then we could have that kind of like field organization I was talking about earlier. Like that all, those things happen, I would be very happy with like whatever 3092 becomes. Like I want that to be the identity of the kingdom. You know, and again, you know, I'm just one person, right? Like different people can have different visions for where the kingdoms go to. But like me personally, that would probably be like the 3 or 4 things that I would really like to see happen.
Yeah. Interesting comment in the chat from Kildy. I like how 2377 does it. They so fast paced, you can't really fight outside ball if you're not a backline hugger. Because when you were talking about 1093, the question I wanted to ask you was, at that peak 1093 open field, were they being very aggressive when they engaged in the open field, or were they dancing back and forth? This is the thing for me that I constantly struggle with, is how aggressive of a ball we should have.
Yeah.
Most kingdoms in this game do dance. Most players like to dance.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it does feel like a very aggressive approach is better. The hard part is getting people to do that.
Oh yeah.
And I wonder if 1093 was, because even in 2268, one of the times I picked up about explicit aggression was watching Plato's streams when you guys were fighting 1900 in Kingsland. You had those very intense open field fights. Yeah. I think you might have gone to bed this night. I'm not sure, but yeah. This was the infamous bus driver goes to bed night. But Plato was like, Plato was like, push guys, push all the way. Fight until you sad face. Fight until you sad face. And you guys did that very well in that KVK. I thought that was a very good strategy. I sort of tried to bring that attitude to our ball in the next KVK, but over the last 6 months or so, I feel like I've seen just everybody dances. Yeah. It's really hard to get people to do anything differently. And yet I do feel like, go ahead.
If I had to take a guess, I think Panther, it probably came from like Panther, and he got it from 960, right? Because I see this at the very top KVKs. So from just like a strategic standpoint, right? For a ball, you want to get as tight as possible, just because it's way harder to get out of position. It's way harder to get singled out and targeted, right? Now, as soon as you get that ball really tight, the most advantageous way to push is to push right into the middle of the opponent's ball, right? So like a way to think about it is like leverage, right? If you have like a sumo wrestler or like a lineman, whoever can actually get under the other person will have an advantage. And it's kind of like that with 2 balls, right? If you get the ball really tight and you don't go back and forth, you actually push right into the middle of the opponent's ball. From a positioning and strategic advantage, you're gonna have like now, right? If one side is just like has stronger players or more players, like right, it's not like that side could still win. But if it's like everything being equal, the tighter you can make your ball, and then you just push right into the middle of the other ball, you don't retreat and dance back and forth. That's actually like where's the best. Now, I see that with like 1093, 960, even like 2377, dude. Like they're literally just, it's like they just clash, so they're all sitting there, right? Now, what 1093 did, that was very like, not only is there just their movement is so clean, right? Like it's like you can tell everyone's in voice because you don't have stragglers, but also because they had usually a numbers advantage, they would start doing crazy stuff where like one swarm will go one way and the other will go other way, and they would like start like flanking people and just doing all kinds of like stuff. It's not just like one war lead. It's almost like it almost seemed like 2, maybe even like 3 war leads, all like working together to like position it. It's it's the cleanest like looking open field I've ever seen out of like any kingdoms I observed. Right.
Yeah.
But if it's yeah, go ahead.
Well, if you are very confident you're going to win the fight, it's a lot easier to be aggressive.
Yeah, that's true.
And so that's one thing. I mean, but the thing is, you can iterate on it. Like going into the middle of the ball is interesting to me because what I really focus on is that front of the ball. Because to me, the front of the ball are the most important targets because they're the players who are doing the most.
Yeah.
You know, the players who are consistently standing at the front. Now, granted, you do have to kind of fall back briefly and then return to the front. But the players who are consistently spending a lot of time at the front, they're protecting the integrity of the ball, right? In a slower fight, in a dancing type of fight, the tip of the center of the ball, to me, is like the most important part to try to deplete of the enemy. And it's also the most important point for you to have presence with your marches.
Right.
I sort of focus on that, but I just focus on that because like that's the best I almost feel like that's the best we can do, because when I tell people to be super aggressive, half the people are aggressive, they get murked, and the other half are not aggressive, and then the front of the ball dies.
Yeah, that's why you have to move together, right? But like now you just imagine, right? Like if your strongest players are in the front and they literally push past you right into the middle, but like the whole ball moves into the middle of your ball. So they're inside and then you're on the outside. Right? Like that's why like the more compact you could get and you spread the other person out, like the more of an advantage you have from a positioning standpoint.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now there's only like I've actually only seen it at the, like, you know, I'm not seeing it here. Obviously this is a little bit different, right? Like on the screen here, but I've only seen it at the very highest levels. And then like the first time I actually got to play that way was actually in 68 when Panther was war leading, and it was like, no, we're going to push right into the middle, keep it very tight, push in the middle, don't retreat, and just keep everyone pushed towards the middle. And it's almost like you're trying to get into the middle of their ball, like with your ball, and you just disperse.
So you literally ignore the front of their ball.
Yeah, like you push past them. Yeah, you just start pushing right into the middle, and like it's cool because like if everyone's doing it, they literally, it just feels like they start like dispersing or like disintegrating, right? And yeah, but like everyone has to do it. If you have people that are like refuse to do it, they go in the back, and only, you know, like 5 people in the front do it, then they just die off, then it doesn't work.
Yeah. I almost have us fight in a way that facilitates the inevitable back line where it's like,
yeah,
let's be sturdy at the front, let's pull people in whenever we can. And when people do get pulled in, then that skilled, tough front line needs to ignore those pulled in marches because the back line's just sitting there waiting for those people. You know, the back line's going to cover it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like, you know, you talked earlier about how you wanted 3092 to be certain things, and if you do those certain things, then you'll be fine with how things turn out regardless. You know, it's all iterative improvement in this game. You just have to iterate. Add more players, get more experience together, develop a stronger fighting style. I think our open field style has been a challenge, and maybe I'm at fault for not allowing us to be more aggressive. I don't know. I mean, I try to lead by example and be at the front a lot, but
yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe have like a town hall and like try it on the next open field and see if
we've talked about it. We have definitely talked about it. I've shown videos of. I remember Gaines Gaming had some interesting fights in a recent KVK, and I just sort of showed some video of him fighting, and I was like, this is what these guys did well, this is what they did badly, look at how well it worked here where they were aggressive. And we tried to implement that, but then, you know, that KVK we were kind of not as strong as some of the other camps in the field. Maybe this is more of the KVK where we should work on that stuff. But what I wanted to say, and maybe this slowly gets us into our next topic of that's on the list here, but you know, it's also like vibes, right? Like if your vibes on voice are good and you keep people engaged, you're going to have more people keep showing up. You're going to have more people refreshing quickly and bringing their marches back out. And they're also going to listen to you more. I think for myself, I've just been like very frustrated as a leader lately. I've been a little bit less engaged. I think I've probably I think my peak as a leader was maybe a year or two ago, and I'm not quite as good as I used to be, not quite as tough as I used to be.
Yeah.
And like if I could get better at stuff like that, then that would also improve our open field, even if we just keep dancing.
Yeah. So like,
obviously,
like, like, well, I don't think Plato is watching, but Plato is actually a really good war lead, right? And obviously, like, he's all like friendly and chill, whatever. So like, it would make it would be weird if he started getting real tough and like yelling at people. But like, I feel like everyone has a style that works for them. And what I realize is, because I used to think it's kind of weird, but like a lot of times people are just saying the same thing over and over, right? Like everyone knows, like, hey, don't retreat, like stay there. But like when someone's saying it without, like when Plato's doing it without like yelling at you, but he's almost like encouraging you to do it, like his way works really, really well, So like, yeah, 960. Yeah. Make sure you make Plato a war lead. He tries to get out of it, but he's actually really good.
I mean, I think being calm and like upbeat and positive, if you just did that all the time, if I just did that like as much as I possibly could, I think that would be quite strong, right? Like if you're just calm and you get people to do the right thing, I think people do respond to that quite well.
Yeah.
In other games, you'll see people a lot of times repeat the same few things over and over again. Like in Albion Online or something, they'll say like 20 or 30 words total, but it's like northwest, southeast. You move southeast. Peel. Like all these words. There's some line of thought where like saying the same thing multiple times gets the point across better than saying it calmly one time. So you're right. People do have different styles. Different things can work.
Yeah, it's like I don't know how to describe it. Like it's how like there's a like an orchestra. There's like a conductor. Like those musicians could play. Yeah, they're just playing their part. They don't need a conductor, right? But like, there's something about having like one person that's like making eye contact, pointing to you, and like it's your time to like it really actually enhances it. So I think it's very important for Kingdom, you can make it happen, is to get as many people on voice, right? And just be in the voice channel as you're doing these wall markers. Like you could do markers and it works, right? But like being in voice and and actually being in voice for a lot of the other people, I feel like really enhances that as well.
Yeah, I mean, being a facilitator is what I really should focus on. Thinking less and less about my own account, getting over the fact that that Eleanor sucks and all that, and just being a facilitator for all of the very skilled players that we do have. Without getting into specifics, I think my vibes during our 12 hours of hard fighting were good, but then I had one bad moment.
Yeah.
Where basically I was ranting about stuff off mic and I didn't think people could hear me, but they could.
Yeah.
And like one of these players who came in, one of these ex-leaders, they're like very well connected in the community, and they brought up another player recently who is looking for a more casual experience, and maybe sort of they could come to 1770 for that, like kind of a big name player, like at least someone who I've heard of before.
Right.
And I was thinking about that, and I was like, gosh, we have something here that is good enough that someone came in, liked what they saw, and now they're recommending it to other like very accomplished players. And like, who am I to screw that up? Like, who am I to be the person who has like the worst vibes on the voice chat, where like these players could potentially come here? Like, why can't I take this seriously enough to just be like, do the best you can? Like, if you don't enjoy what's going on, then play less, or just bite your tongue while you're playing, and just like do the best you can to facilitate what's happening around you. Like the thing is, like, even if I'm not at my best, I still know that like what I bring to a war situation is very good. I'm just like I just like stay on top of the logistics, right? It's like I tell people on voice like where the next focus is going to be. Like let's focus here for the next 10 minutes. Let's rotate our ball here. We don't have a ball out. Okay, I'm going to set a ball marker and I'm going to bring us out. It might not be the most effective thing ever, but at the end of the day, number one, people like to be coordinated.
Yeah.
And number two, people like to have content. Like, okay, if I get off the couch and organized an offensive, it may not go off perfectly, but there's so many key players in our alliance who would rather do an organized attack than twiddle their thumbs doing nothing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so even if I'm not at my very best, understand what your team needs and give them as much of that as you can. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. And like also, just like kind of like, you know, having the self-awareness to like own like, hey, you know, I'm sorry. Like I kind of, you know, lost control of my emotions there, you know, like that's whatever. Like even being able to like acknowledge that, especially in like in real time, and then just move on, right? Like that's like a sign of a good leader. You know, like it's not like people don't have emotions or they don't get upset or something, but it's just like being able to redirect, focus on like what the actual objective is, and being able to know like, hey, you know what, that part wasn't effective, you know, and just like move on, you know, and like most people will easily move on from that and actually like respect you even more from that, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know,
I don't know
ostensibly this.
I don't know what Panther is saying. Don't do it. Don't do what? What am I doing?
I mean, so like,
did I click on? Okay, no, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I wasn't watching your stream. Yeah, you know, like when I go into a KVK, or at least, you know, when I was really at my best, when I was really sharp, I was super focused on ROK because I didn't have a lot else going on in life.
Yeah.
When I would start a KVK, what I would really say to myself, what are my goals? My goal is just to be a good person. Like my goals were literally that vague. Just be a good person, because you're going to be on voice enough and you're going to do enough stuff that who you are is going to come across to the people around you. You know, be calm, be less emotional, work on your relationships with people, like foster the relationships during this intense time. And like that can go a long way as well. You know, like people see who you are as a person, and a lot of times that will be, you know, keys to stuff. But like at the same time, I mean, there's such a difference between being on the cutting edge of this game and being a little bit less sharp. I mean, you talked about it earlier about coaching, and how you get tilted when a college football coach makes like a bad decision. For me, a great example was earlier in this NFL season, the Raiders coach Antonio Pierce, who does like a very good job of getting a lot out of his players, but he's very bad at game managing. And there was a moment early in the season, like week 3 or week 4, where the Raiders were down like a touchdown or so in the fourth quarter, and it was like 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 around like the opponent's like 45-yard line or something.
Right.
And Antonio Pierce decided to punt instead of go for it. And after the game, people were calculating that one decision potentially cost the Raiders like half a win in expectation.
Yeah.
And people were saying like,
that's all analytics and
like
expected value.
Yeah. Expected value. Like the expected value of that one decision by one person literally cost the Raiders like half a win. And you think about how much money and time and people's effort, like literally dozens, if not hundreds of people, all working towards the same goal of winning NFL games, and one person's decision making like the wrong call there really hurts the expectation.
Right. And now
those sorts of decisions do come up in ROK as well. That level of variance over a leader's decisions also comes up in ROK. So it's all about vibes and being a good person and stuff, but also you got to make really good calls.
And this is where like self-awareness comes in, right? So let's just say like Pierce he's a good maybe he's a player's coach. He's really good at motivating, right, and getting people to play hard. But he doesn't have a good feel for the game, and like when it's happening in real time, like making the right call, like right, it's kind of like an art too, right? Having this self-awareness to then give up play calling or give up in-game management to someone who's good, and then do the part you're good at, like right, like it's okay to have shortcomings as a coach, as a leader or whatever, right? But like if you don't recognize that, or you get defensive, or you have some ego and you keep wanting to hold on to play calling when you're just not doing it at a level, then people actually start losing trust. Like players lose trust in you, the fan base, the ownership. And like I see that over and over, like in real life, in sports. I mean, obviously in the kingdom too, right? So like a lot of it's like recognizing your strengths and weaknesses, or what you like to do, what burns you out, which we're going to get into next, right? And then being able to give up stuff that someone else could do better, and that, like a lot of that kind of stuff is like super important in kingdom building. And I see it where a lot of people don't recognize that, and that actually takes away people's trust in the leadership of the kingdom.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen it in the NFL this year. We've seen a lot of locker rooms get lost.
Yeah.
Some locker rooms get recovered. I mean, like the Giants last week after the Giants game, you had multiple players, including rookies, really bad mouthing the coach's decision to start like a certain quarterback. Yeah, and now this week, I actually bet on the Giants again this week, because the speculation is that maybe the locker room comes back a little bit, or at least is professional enough to give a good effort, even if the locker room gets lost. You can also lose people in ROK. That's kind of where I'm at, right? Is like, I'm like, I don't want to lose the locker room here.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lose the locker room because like other leaders are doing so well, and like Adi Navo is playing as well as he has ever played.
Yeah.
We have other players who have very much stepped up. Like we've added more officers, more voices who can sort of, in some ways, replace me, because I am just busier with other things nowadays.
Yeah. Sports
and
betting.
It is. Yeah. Well, and also I have a business. Yeah. Like the thing is, I have a business now where like in certain wars, I'm just not going to have time to play.
Yeah.
And what's been really nice is to realize, maybe I can do less. Maybe I can be around less often, but like fill in the gaps where I'm needed, and we'll be just fine. Like that's been the really nice revelation, is to realize maybe this kingdom will be fine without me.
That's ideal. Right. That's ideal, right? Where like you're, obviously you're an important part of the kingdom, but you don't feel like the kingdom won't make it without you. I think that's like most leadership's goal is to like not create like a dependence on you, even though like you're super valued, because then that means like the kingdom's in a very healthy place. There's like one person or like two people where like, oh, this person's gone, like we're completely cooked, like that I think that's not ideal. And also it just doesn't feel good psychologically as like a leader in a kingdom, because then you just feel like you're almost like pressure to constantly do stuff. So speaking of which, you said you had some stuff you want to mention with burnout, right? So what were your thoughts?
Well, I wanted to ask you, I think maybe one good way to segue into that, Bus, is something I'm wondering for you is like, what was your experience of being a leader in this KVK you just fought? Was it what you expected? Are you feeling more excited about it going forward or less excited about it? I mean, you're sort of embarking on a journey that many people have gone down, but not too many people have lived to tell about it.
Come out unscathed.
I mean, not many people are still around on the flip side of it to tell their stories. What has been your experience as an R5?
So first, let's actually talk about like what burnout actually is, right? Because I think like we hear that phrase a lot, right? But like, and I've been burnt out, like business and real life and stuff. Burnout doesn't actually happen from like a short amount of time, because usually what happens is something is essentially exceeding what you can handle consistently, like over a period of time, and like you can still do it, but it actually feels like you never fully recover, or where you get to a really good place, and you almost start like disassociating, and like you're not as present, like the joy and the enjoyment of something goes out the window, and you start getting into more of like a like autopilot, where you're almost in like survival mode, right? To me, that's what burnout is. It's not that you work really hard for like a week, like this KVK, where you feel like you had no sleep, and or like to me, like, okay, yeah, like that was just some, like some physical, like it was just very, very tough for that period of time. But that's not what burnout is. Burnout is over a longer period of time, where like you don't even really realize it, but it's almost like you can't even enjoy whatever it is you're doing it anymore, because like you have gone so far past where you just disassociated, right? So like that's the way I'll define it. I'm sure that other people will define it in different ways. So like for me, it's realizing, okay, what kind of stuff will burn me out more than others, right? So everyone, I've said this many times, right? Like everyone is a genius at something, right? And usually when they're a genius at something, it'll come easier. They have like a natural advantage over most other people that don't, where that thing doesn't come easy to them. If you put people in a position to do the stuff that they have like a natural talent or a genius at, the chances of burnout goes a lot lower, right? So a good example of that is like, to me, is like data, right? Data is one of those where you're either going to get burnt out by it, or like you actually enjoy it, and it almost makes it feel like you have some degree of a contribution and control to the kingdom. And like there's right, it's actually pretty black and white. There's data people, and there's the people that get burnt out by data, right? So it's very important starting out that like you identify the stuff that burns you out. Like, so data will burn me out. I realized fairly early on that like trying to organize ARC burns me out. It's just a game mode where I get some gold heads every 2 weeks, right? So I don't want to go around trying to figure out who's going to do ARC this week, right? And then like making sure they show up, and then like trying to like punish people, or at least give them a warning, or like kick them off the team if they don't show up. And then like the strategy, it's like, it's still part of the game, right? But like KVK strategy is enjoyable. ARC strategy is not enjoyable. So if it's not, right, I should try to find someone where it's more enjoyable for them, and then put them in a position to do it. And then, if that doesn't work out, then find someone out. But long term, if I had to keep doing ARC, my burnout would have been a lot faster, right? So having gone through this KVK, what I realized too is the stuff that I probably like doing the most is recruiting, and then also helping shape the culture of the kingdom, right? But like the day-to-day stuff, like that's kind of neutral for me. I don't think I necessarily enjoy that much, but that part doesn't burn me out. So some of the stuff I'm doing now is like every kingdom, right? You have a bunch of lion shells, and it's like getting the territory and the positions so you can build credit and then have those ready. So like I'm managing a lot of that stuff, and then recruiting, right? But I've actually taken more of a step back, and like a lot of the other stuff, right? That we still have like different groups where we meet and we talk about stuff, and like kind of like what the goal is. But there's been a lot of people that from even this last recruiting cycle, if you will, that really stepped up and have done great in a lot of different roles. So it's been really fun, actually, like being part of a team doing stuff, and not being like all that responsibility is on you. Because when all the responsibility is on you, I don't know, it almost feels like you can't relax, right? Like you always have to be paying attention. You always have to, check your Discord, all that stuff. And then, like trying to juggle that with, running a business in real life, and then, trying to do a YouTube channel. Like, I don't know for people have noticed, my YouTube output has gone down a lot the last 3 months, right? Like I used to make 3 or 4 videos a week, probably stream once or twice a week. The last like 3 or 4 streams, I've been streaming like once every 2 weeks, and I probably do like 1 or 2 videos a week now. Right, so I'm still trying to find that balance, but so far it's okay. Figuring it out, but I think I'm very, very cognizant of like not taking on stuff or putting myself in a position where I burn out. Because like honestly, if I burn out in this game, I think I'll just stop playing, right? And I actually really enjoy playing this game. And like it's like making sure that I can like have longevity playing this game and be part of this kingdom and contribute and still have fun and not feel like it becomes like a job.
Yeah, I've been aware of the burnout thing ever since I started playing the game. Being somewhat familiar with games like this in the past, I knew that to really be good at a game like Rise of Kingdoms, you had to play it long term.
Yeah.
Like on just a very fundamental level, because I started playing when the game just first came out, right? So we were trying to just secure small victories as we grew.
Yeah.
I knew that like just continuing to play was going to be more valuable than anything I could do on a day-to-day basis. And, I moderated those things in various ways early on in the game. When we were migrating from one kingdom to another at one point and there was a bunch of drama, I actually stayed behind in the old kingdom for about 6 months and just,
oh wow,
played these very, very casual KVKs with the people who were left, because I just wanted to just not play the game on such a like high level for a while. And lately I've just kind of I've played the game for 6 years. I think it's completely normal to be like, I don't want to make this a focus of every day of my life.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I want to think about other things. I want, I have interests in other things. I want to pursue those interests. I've been a lifelong gamer, and I have never played a game for as long as I've played Rise of Kingdoms.
Yeah.
So it's completely uncharted territory, even for an experienced gamer like myself. And I think it's totally natural to like want to take a break from the game sometimes. And I have been feeling that lately, and I'm sure people have sensed that like I'm not talking in officer chat that much. I'm also just like super busy sometimes. Like sometimes I just work, like in October and November, I basically worked 7 days a week for about 6 or 7 weeks straight. I barely had any days off at all. And then the very first day I had off, the passes were opening.
Oh God.
And it's like, we're hitting the enemy uptime right off the bat, and it's like, here we go again, huge enemy ball, and we have to figure out the best way to deal with this ball.
Yeah.
And basically I think for 2 KVKs in a row, I've kind of had these moments where I just say that I'm not having fun. I'm sick of this shit. 2 KVKs ago, I said it on voice. This KVK, I thought the mic was not picking it up. I was just talking to myself in my apartment, but people heard it anyway.
Oh no.
And it's like, so like part of it is I'm trying to communicate to people that, hey, I kind of like want a break.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to not burn out. You know what I mean? Like as I'm in the process of being burnt out, I'm also trying to not burn out and be like, can we just chill for a while? Like, thank God this KVK is relaxed. Like, I think a lot of us needed a relaxed KVK. I know that I did. And, I think you can just kind of like go up and down. I think there can be peaks and valleys with your interest in this game.
No, yeah, I agree. I mean, it like, what part of the game do you enjoy the most? Like, which aspect?
That's the other thing I was going to say. What's funny is like, Arc is my favorite part of the game. Like planning Arc matches is like,
really,
I don't mind doing that at all. It takes me like an hour to do. I don't mind doing that, but playing the actual Arc match and hanging out after the Arc match is literally my favorite part of the game. Like for sure, that is my favorite part of the game. Not even close. And hopefully I can keep doing that even after I've like not even spending that much time playing. And I enjoy, what else do I enjoy? I enjoy grinding after we've won a zone, right? I enjoy kind of the period we're in now where we won a zone, everybody's happy.
Yeah.
You just kind of do some chaining, you start some barb forts.
God, that's like
you jump.
We have such different views of like what we enjoy in the game. That's crazy. So
Yeah.
So mine is actually when like it's like a very it's almost okay, almost like I just play for 12 hours like straight, right? And like we're just been in voice, and it's like you're almost just the experience, like the camaraderie of working with, you know, 80, 100, however many people, to try to like out strategize the other people, like, you know, like the back and forth, right? And then like that experience, like that's actually the part I enjoy the most, right? And like everything else I'm doing is to actually get to enjoy, like really enjoy that, it almost feels like. And like, so like, why do I do arc? So I could get the gold head, so I can actually enjoy that open that open fielding grind, right? Or okay, like you're gonna push in, do we actually get the burn, like that kind of stuff, you know? So it's actually crazy. Listen, like you actually enjoy the chaining and stuff. Like that's almost like the busy work I have to do to get to the part that I really enjoy in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if I were not like a leader at all, and I was just like in a kingdom and the pass is opened and I could just listen to what people are saying and follow markers and just fight people in the open field, I might say that's my favorite part as well. I can certainly see why that's very enjoyable.
It might be time just to like let them know, you know, hey, can I like take a break like this KVK where I'm just a grunt that gets told what to do, you know, and you know maybe you'll miss it after getting a break from it, because like if you feel like you're obligated to do that every KVK, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think, you know, it's Thanksgiving weekend here in the U.S. We're coming up to the end of the year. You're just finishing easy KVK. We're sort of in the midst of an easy KVK. To me, this is like a recovery period in the game. And so like we're probably not going to have another tough war for a couple of months, and I have no idea how I'll feel then, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to move apartments. I've had this like shitty apartment for 3 years where my neighbors wake me up all the time. I'm going to move to a quieter apartment, have normal nights of sleep. You know, my business is doing well. And so in 2 months, I might be in a very different headspace.
Yeah, it might be
right?
rejuvenated. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I also realized?
To me, like things are very emotional, and like the world is moving very quickly. And so I don't know how you feel about these things, and I don't quite know how other people feel. But what I see in myself and others is that like people are swinging. Well, I'm swinging quickly emotionally, but at the same time, it seems like Rise of Kingdoms is slowing down a little bit. There hasn't been too many kingdoms changing recently. The game itself is actually, like, I think a lot of the changes have been very positive for the game. So
yeah, I don't think the game's dying at all. I especially for me, because I interact with a lot of younger players, right, that reach out for different things, and then kind of like checking, seeing their kingdom, how many alliances they have, like the activity, the amount of spend is probably actually the highest at like a young Imperium kingdom. Like besides, you know, maybe like one or two of the top kingdoms in the game, it's actually most of the money is actually with newer players that are like that aren't burnt out, that are super hyped, you know. So like until that starts really like dropping off, I don't think this game is dying at all. It's just the older players, you know, are retiring, right? But there are like younger players that are spending a ridiculous amount of money, and there's a lot of activity at the younger kingdoms.
Yeah, and they've made that experience better, right? Where now there's an extension of how long it takes before you fight us old kingdoms.
Yeah.
They've restricted the amount of, they've really affected the amount of migration that can go back to KVK 2 and KVK 3.
Yeah.
I think at this point, really old players basically have no ability to go all the way back to KVK 2.
Yeah, which is a good thing, you know.
Which is good. All these things are good. These things make the early game better for new accounts. It gives them more value for all that money that they're spending.
Yeah.
Because they're getting maybe 2 years or so of value before they have to fight, you know, people who've been playing for 6 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, the new part of the game experience has gotten better. the domain system, in my opinion, is excellent. I love the domain
It's
system.
very
How do you feel? Like, do you feel like the
the
domain system has hurt your kingdom as like a newer, clean slate
well,
type of
we
kingdom?
haven't been able to use it yet. So right, hopefully with the right migration, we could use it for this next one. But the domain system, I even said it like when it first came out, because like it makes so much sense, right? And it takes away the need to actually do a lot of the stuff people used to do to like kingdom management. Because like now if I have a rogue, right, just send them to domain 2 when I'm in domain 1, and then if you have your zone 1 blocked off, so they're just out in zone 1 doing whatever. The only annoying thing is maybe like during MGE they could like try to snipe it, right, which is like is annoying. But like in KVK, like that, they're not your problem anymore, and you could actually like largely isolate that. Also, it's like way better because now you could essentially select your roster, right? So when Lilith does matchmaking, like you pick that roster, right? So you like dead weights aren't included in there, right? So like it's hugely positive. Overall, the updates in the game, like for the most part, they make a lot of sense, right? And like I mean the one I probably had the biggest problem with is how they're doing armaments, because there's like a very obvious solution that they just refuse to go to for whatever reason that I think they'll go to eventually, which is like for armament, you just select an armament, right? And then after you see the stats and that whether it has an inscription or not, then you select the formation type. Right now you could actually release a bunch of different new formation types and it will kind of flow. And then on the back end, the pity system for special inscription should just be all tied to 10 rares, right? Once you get 10 rares, you can select a special. You don't need 10 rares of one troop type to select a special. So it kind of all goes in the same bucket. Like it streamlines, it makes a lot more sense. I don't know why they don't do it. They're picking like a clunkier version. But as far as like the kingdom stuff, the one I think they're gonna have to change is that when they say for matchmaking, they're not gonna count power, right? Because power directly contributes to the potential for someone to take deads, which you need to fill rally, garrison, and swarm, right? So if you're not counting power, like I just don't know how they can reconcile that, right? So like right now their solution is, okay, we're not going to count power, we're actually going to track their activity level for the last KBK, right? Then what's to prevent me from, for example, getting a farm super fat, right? Let's just say I get a farm up to 100 mil power, and I'm literally just hard stuffing like a flag or a fort or something with that flag, right? I mean with that farm, and I kill, say like I drop 50 million power on that farm, right? So now the next KBK, right, because they're like, oh wow, that farm was super active, right? It's gonna really elevate your matchmaking. The next KBK, I send that farm to domain 2. I'm not gonna use it, right? And then the KBK after that, I train up a bunch of troops again. Now, because of the Lilith matchmaking system, the last KBK, that farm went into domain 2 and didn't do anything. So the matchmaking is going to be really low, but now I have a really fat farm that I can farm fill again, right? So I could just off cycle like that and take advantage of the system. It just, someone maybe in chat, they could give me a scenario where they're like, oh yeah, you can not count power and there's no way to cheat it. There's always going to be a way to cheat it because fundamentally power is how many troops you could kill. So like when they're like, oh, we're not going to count power, I'm very, very leery of that, right? Like they could try it, but people are going to exploit it. And then at some point they're going to count power. So one of the things recently, people have been like, oh, can I migrate in our fatter farm? So I'm like, no. Let's actually let this new algorithm run for a bit and then let them have to adjust for it. And then we'll see. Because I just don't see a scenario where they could just ignore power and then not have it come back and bite them in the ass.
I mean, it seems very complicated to me. And so if they somehow have an algorithm that ends up being superior to figuring out power and kill points, then I would be fine with it. It just seems rather complicated when at this point with the domain system, what they have given us is they have given us the ability to select how much KP and how much power we bring to a KBK. We can literally pick both of those things. And at that point, the kingdom has been given a lot of agency in terms of what they present to the matchmaking committee. And it seems like you would then be able to make some pretty good matchups by just looking at power and KP.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hadn't heard too much about that particular wrinkle to the matchmaking system that you're talking about. Maybe they will change it, maybe not. I mean, one thing that I would say is that it seems like they're being pretty responsive to player feedback lately. Obviously, there was that petition by 1093 that a number of people covered. I made a video about it. Other people made a video about it. A number of those changes were implemented in terms of like vacation mode, and I think that petition also even potentially led to the new feature where each player is getting passports added to their own alliance shop. I made a video about how castle skins are really rough for people who have not won a Zenith. And then like 2 weeks later, they got rid of debuffs on castle skins. I mean, I don't know if it had anything to do with my video or not, but even in the recent update today, if anybody saw it, there was an update on Facebook about some of the changes that they're making where it's like, there's going to be like max power for each kingdom, where if you're below that max power, I think it's going to be like 23 billion. If you're below that, you're going to have much less restrictions for migration. And they literally said, like, because the two servers are different, because the Chinese and international servers are different, we're going to make these numbers different. And they literally barely made a difference. One server has a cap of 23 billion. The other server has a cap of 24 billion. But to me, when I read that, I was like, wow, they're being pretty responsive by being like, we understand that both of these servers have different needs, and we're literally going to titrate this one number based on that one server. So, I mean, I guess I'm being bullish for no reason because they've never given us any transparency into matchmaking. But maybe they'll come up with a pretty good solution. And the matchmaking's been all right lately. I don't know.
I mean, so here's what I feel like they can easily do, right? And I don't know how hard it is. I feel like it's very important, like when you're setting up any kind of system, is you want to line up like the incentive structure where like people are incentivized to basically do what they're supposed to do, and then they're punished for doing stuff that's like harmful, right? So like one thing I wish they would implement, I'm not sure exactly how to do it, is like kingdoms get punished for queuing into a KVK, and then doing a recovery KVK, right? Like I don't know why they don't allow kingdoms to just infinitely skip, right? Because if someone is just doesn't want to do a kingdom, just doesn't want to do KVK, they just want to keep skipping, like let them skip, right? Like why would you force a kingdom that doesn't want to do a KVK? Oh, they max skip, so they have to do this KVK now. And then especially for like a KVK map with say like 4 camps and not that many kingdoms, that one kingdom that just doesn't want to participate can actually ruin the matchmaking. All right, so what I really hope they focus on next is actually get into figuring out how to do like the best matchmaking, and then have some kind of like punishment system or reward system where they line up the incentives, where like kingdoms are incentivized for joining into a KVK and then actually having a very active, like well balanced, like fighting KVK, and then like kingdoms that don't are actually punished for that. That's kind of like the next change I would like to see. I have some thoughts on how it could be done, but I don't think I have that like completely like fleshed out yet. What were you saying right before this? As far as like as far as the other changes, like for the most part, I like a lot of them. And actually the passport one is very interesting, right? Because that's like I don't know if you could think of one. That's the first update they've made since I've been playing, where they're literally on the surface going to make less money from the passport, but it's actually a huge positive for the game. Right, because
huge positive for the game.
Yeah, because now you just need to build credits, and then you'll always be able to buy X amount of passports using the credits. Right, you don't need to spend money now, unless like there's an emergency and you just migrated and you need to migrate again, right? And then there's like a way to get passports faster, and also it doesn't cost alliance credits, right? Like it's actually like I you know, for me it's almost like, what's the catch? Because like, wait, you're actually going out of your way to make the system that makes a lot of sense and will make the game better, but you're going to make less money, and then you're okay with that? Like it's actually a break from their other updates, right? Like I'm not saying like they don't have a right to make money, they do, but I just actually can't think of another Lilith update where I'm like, wait, they're actually making the game better at the expense of making money. So that's a huge positive.
Well, you know what the free passports are best for? What type of account? It's best for accounts that get bought. Like that's what it's best for more than anything, right? Because there's such a friction point there where someone buys an account and then like one of your players sold their account, some new person comes on and they're like, can you give me 40 passports?
Dude, it's so
right, and you're like, hell no, we can't give you 40 passports. You haven't done anything for us, right? Like, what's in it for us?
If we can do it, we just try to get rid of them. Yeah, but it's very annoying, right? And like I'm actually really glad.
Very annoying.
Yeah, because like, or like you know what? You need to grind credits, and then you could buy your own passport or pay money. But like, why should we be punished for this? So I'm really glad that that's a thing. You know, hopefully they implement it soon, because I actually just sold like 30 passports to someone that was supposed to come, and it ended up not coming in, and it did not feel good to sell the passports. You know,
you sold them passports, but they didn't come.
Well, they brought their farms and ended up not coming.
But how did they get passports?
So
you gave them passports afterwards. They brought their farms, and then
they brought their farms, and then were supposed to come, but then ended up going to like a big kingdom, and like, hey, sorry, you know, like I ended up getting accepted to this big kingdom, right? So then at that point, what do you do? Like, go screw yourself, right? And like, or you just try to make it work, right? But like making it work doesn't mean it feels good. So
yeah. And I mean, there's also players who. I mean, the other thing that it really helps, and what all these changes have helped, are the players who used to be active. They're not active anymore. They're your friends.
Yeah.
And it's gone from being a really, really tough situation with those people where you tell them they have to leave. It's hard for them to find a kingdom. Yeah. And then you have all this annoying stuff with passports where, like, you know, you're like, are you going to force your friend? If it's a friend, we're not making them give us resources for those passports, but now they can just do it themselves, and they can do it on their own time. If they want to leave in 3 months, they can leave in 3 months. If they want to stay here for 2 years and play in Domain 2 the whole time, they can just
I could put them
stay here for 2 years.
Yeah, you could put them in vacation mode. You know, like the Imperium burden isn't so bad now, where like you could actually still make it work and get recruits. You could put them in Domain. You could like it actually. It's a good change overall. Like I like a lot of where the game's heading. You know, actually, I'm not gonna lie. I probably like internally roll my eyes whenever I hear someone say the game's dying, because it's just like there's by a lot, like a dying game doesn't make these kind of updates. You know, a dying game doesn't implement the system and then tweak it and then try to make it more effective and like do stuff. I don't know. It's just this like thing people echo, but it's like I'm not sure. I'm not sure where you're getting your reasoning for that the game is dying. It's like, oh, well, there's not as many kingdoms. Like yeah, I mean, might not have as many players as 2020, you know, when everyone was like at home, locked down and stuff. But it doesn't mean this game is like dying. You know, it's just like this circumstance different, right? I also think it's really good that you have games like the Age of Empire games that because this is where. Like people are like, oh look, like capitalism, right? Like so the part of capitalism I really like is competition, because competition will drive down costs, but it also like forces people to step up to be able to like keep up with like the cutting edge trend. We're also going to fall behind, and then someone else will replace them, right? So you have another game out there that's putting a lot of pressure on Lilith to do better. Like that's always a good thing in my opinion.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen some really good like player-friendly changes that we have to assume are the result of Age of Empires coming out. I haven't followed that game at all. I don't know if it seems like it's probably not doing as well as they hoped, but
Yeah,
I don't really know.
there's a lot of hype for like a week, but yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't followed.
I'm not sure. I mean, I think one potential reason that people think ROK is dying is it just seems like a lot of us YouTubers have fallen off. Like the YouTubers have kind of all gotten burnt out a little bit.
Yeah,
And I think it's worth noting for people who are listening to me and Bus or listening to anybody really is that one thing that Lilith has done very well is they have incentivized and rewarded creators quite a bit. And so I think we are all a little bit predisposed to say nice things about this game. It's a rare situation, I think, where content creators for a game actually have warm feelings towards the game developer. That's usually not the case.
My experience with them has been really good, right? I assume yours has too.
Me too.
Yeah,
and really
good. I mean, besides some like terms of service stuff, they've never told me like I can't say certain things or whatever, right? Like if they actually like try to like if I ended up being like a mouthpiece for Lilith, I would just not be I would just do my own videos but not have a contract with them, but like they've given me all the freedoms to say whatever I really believe and think, like my experience with them has been really good.
Yeah, thinking about burnout and stuff like that, like I have not, some people do have contracts with Lilith. I sometimes go back and forth with that. They've never offered one to me, but if they did, I kind of go back and forth on it because I sort of like the idea of making content at times when I'm inspired and motivated to make content. And then if I don't want to do anything, I can just let things go. I mean, it's not good for my channel's growth, but
I get it. Yeah.
I kind of do want to like make this a long-term thing. You know what I mean? And just like make content when I have time and would enjoy making content.
Yeah.
If I don't want to, I step back, and I'm trying to do the same thing with the game, right? It's like when I'm motivated, go balls to the wall.
Yeah.
When I'm not, log in, do my dailies, and log out. These are both long-term endeavors for me. YouTube is a long-term endeavor. Rise of Kingdom is also probably going to be a long-term endeavor.
Yeah.
And it's a balancing act, man. To me, it's just a balancing act. Like, you can't I mean, God bless the people who are able to be on the cutting edge all the time. I just can't do it.
Well, you've also been playing for 6 years, like, so the tread's been worn out a little more. All right, like
it is.
I remember like a year in, I'm like, how do people get sick of this game? I love it. I can just like play all the time. I'm like, some of the stuff isn't as exciting. I used to get excited for like pre-KVK and like Marauders and stuff, so.
Yeah, and you want to prove yourself, right? Like you want to see what you're able to achieve.
Yeah.
And then once you've seen that, you're kind of like, well, what's so impressive about doing it again?
Yeah.
All it really shows is endurance.
And I think the focus also has shifted. I mean, part of it too is just because like credibility, but like I think that for me the focus has shifted off individual stats a lot. I just want this kingdom to do really well, and then like how do we start from like essentially like scratch, and let's see like what we can make out of this kingdom, right? And like that almost like has more of is more of a priority than how my account does individually. Almost, I'm not quite sure yet, but like it did not feel that way like 6 months ago, right? Like that was all about how do I was a brand new newer player too. I felt like I needed to prove myself more individually to have credibility as like a YouTuber and stuff. So I don't know, it's priorities change.
Yeah.
All right, last thing.
Well, can I just say one more thing about the changes, about positive changes to the game, and you talking about stats reminded me of this, is like the autark leaderboard is so freaking cool, man.
Yeah,
I love the autark leaderboard. I will just check it to see what my kills are, what my heal points are, what's that ratio between kills and heals. I'll always check it after like a good if I have like a good 5-minute session where I know I got good trades, I'll go check the ratio.
Yeah, like the enemy elimination too. Like those are like I love those,
Yeah, I think people really enjoy being able to like chart their individual progress as the war is going on, from a statistical perspective,
Yes.
another change, I don't know if this is in every KVK now, but in our KVK, you can actually see the number of deads that your kingdom has taken thus far in the KVK. So like
really?
we're at 52 million deads after the zone 5.
Yeah.
And so that's like pretty interesting too, because that's the kind of thing that like even a player who's not super engaged, who's not paying super close attention, not, you know, they're not clicking on the Excel spreadsheet at the end of every KVK to see what the overall stats are. They can just sort of look at that overall deads for the kingdom from one KVK to another, and it gives them a frame of reference for like how intense the fighting was, how much damage our kingdom took. I think people being able to put some numbers to their reality in the game is like really positive. Like it just from an individual perspective, it makes the game more rewarding to have those.
You even think about like sports, right? Like there's team stats, right? So like your team is like ranked this offensively, your team is ranked this defensively. They got like this much stats. Like there's right, like, and then like you contributed to that. There's like a pride and like a camaraderie you develop from that, you know. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So last thing, what is next for 1770? If you know or you have an idea, what's next for each of our kingdoms? I think we could wrap it up there.
Yeah, definitely. Interestingly, I have not thought about this too much. Obviously, we have a KVK still to complete. We've done less than half the fighting at this point. The enemies may feel like the future zones are a better situation for them, and they might fight harder there. Assuming we wrap up this KVK with a win, I think at that point we will try to do a larger recruitment push in the next off season.
When do you think?
Hopefully, I'll have some.
When do you think that window opens for your recruiting?
It's probably going to be right around the start of the new year. Actually,
okay.
I think we'll probably get out of KVK around that time. You know, I'm gonna hopefully have some free time, make some videos, do like a recruitment video, start a website, try to cast a wide net, and bring some more players in.
And then if people want to apply, where do they go for 1770?
If you're interested in 1770 at this point, message me on Discord. You can find me in the Rise of Kingdoms Discord. I've got a red name there as an associate tier.
What's the
content creator?
Is it just Brian Koo, your handle?
Yep, Brian Koo on Discord.
Okay.
And if you I'm usually online, so if you just scroll through the who list on the right side of Discord, you'll see my name pretty high up there. Bus driver's one tier ahead of me in sky blue, but I'm down there in dark red, Brian Koo. Just message me, start a conversation with me, and we can go forward with it from there as far as 1770 recruiting. I think we'll probably be looking for a very tough KVK after this one. I think our players are likely to say that this was boring, and they want more. So, you know, I think we're in very good shape for a tough KVK. I was not ready for a tough KVK here, but I would like to think that I'll be ready for the next one. I am pretty confident the rest of our group will be ready to go. And, you know, we're just going to keep rolling forward. Not thinking about too many big changes. We're not seeing big changes around us, and we're not making big changes ourselves. We're just going to keep trying to play well and win more KVKs than we lose. But what about you guys?
So we're definitely looking for a tough KVK. First pop, gonna pick the most fun game mode and then go in there. As far as recruiting, I think ideally we like to take like 15 to 20. I think right now on our list, I think we accepted like 7 or 8. I have to go look at it. I kind of changed the approach to recruiting this time. Before we would make the recruiting push a lot earlier, whereas this time I wanted to actually start making it closer to when our migration window opens. And I think our migration window actually opens in like 9 days or so. And then we have a migration Discord. It's migrate2sv.com. It's in the comments or in the details if you look at the video. players we're looking for, kind of like what I talked about earlier. We're gonna do a voice interview, but obviously like the equipment, armament, and commanders, they have to be at a certain place, and then you take your crystal tech far enough where you could be competitive at the level we want to fight at. But really, it's like finding people to kind of be part of the core group, right? We're still a smaller kingdom. I think ideally we could go into our next KVK with probably about like 60 active accounts, be about like 400 to 450 bill KP. So like a low mid A. We want to get out of the current seating we're at. Like right now, I think we entered this KVK at about like 320 bill KP. And I think we're too strong for this seating. It's not that fun, right? So we want to kind of take the next level up, take a challenging KVK, and then kind of like, you know, establish an identity and go from there.
Yeah, if you were in our KVK at 330 million KP, you would be in 9th place in kill points.
Yeah.
If you went up to 450, you'd be, you know, 7th or so.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, this is a pretty good life right here. We're 4th. We're 4th in KP, and we may or may not be the strongest alliance in this KVK.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty nice place to be. The strongest alliance in the KVK is.
Yeah, because like the reality is like we have 50 players, right? Like the way we're built to be a sidekick kingdom, right? Like we're attached to a stronger kingdom, and then they're like, okay, they're a competent like a quote unquote like weaker kingdom that could really like support us. But we just don't have that many players. Right? But like when we're in a KVK, we're like legitimately like we could probably like solo like 3 or 4 kingdoms by ourselves. But with 50 players, and then it's like it's not fun because the fielding, like even like watching this, I'm jealous, right? Like, and like, you know, even though Kane's side is like winning and pushing them back, at least they're balling up and coming back out to fight. Like for us, it's like this happens once or twice, and they just like hide in their city and cheeseburger and wait for us to go over there. Or like as soon as we go over there, they'll go back to their city. And so like we kind of want that next level up to like really test ourselves. Because like right now, I can't even tell you what we're really good at and what we're not good at because we weren't tested. It's almost like every stupid thing we did worked, right? We did a stupid 4 drop and it worked. So like, but are we good or is it like we don't know, right? So like we actually want to find out. So that's what's next, right? And I think we'll be queuing into KVK around like December 22nd or something, and then we'll actually get into the Lost Kingdom beginning of January. So I guess we won't be matching up, but definitely.
No, it looks like we're on different different windows. I was taking a shower earlier and trying to think about Rise of Kingdoms, and I was like, you know, we've never played 1606.
Yeah.
And we've never even been close to being on the same queue as them. I think some kingdoms are literally just in different worlds at this point.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. What are your thoughts on skips? Like first pop, second pop, max? Like what do you think? What do you prefer?
I prefer long breaks. You know, I think most people in my kingdom prefer a bit less of a break. I think there's been at least one time where they skipped for me, basically slowed things down for me.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm getting burnt out. Yeah, I like a couple of skips, no doubt about it. But that's just me. That's just, I just kind of say what I like to do.
I think where we're at right now, it's like a first pop kingdom. We're just, you know, gotta read the kingdom and see where people are at, right? But I think like just like talking to people and like kind of like we have some like really active and even like younger people. They're just like they're just on all the time, right? Like they want first pop, which I actually prefer. So I think we'll be doing that for the foreseeable future.
Yep, definitely. Well, it'll be interesting to see how 3092 progresses forward. I do enjoy being able to talk about both my kingdom and learn about yours on these podcasts we're doing. Hopefully it's enjoyable to the audience to be familiar with the stories of some of these kingdoms so that you can watch us in our journey. And
we'll have to do a round 3 in like another 3 months or something, and then see what has happened since.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always enjoyable to talk to you, Bus. The conversations go very easily. So
man, really appreciate it. Yeah, really appreciate you even reaching out originally to get this started. So I'm gonna stop the stream here. Thank you guys for watching. and say follow Brian if you haven't. I assume you guys are subscribed to me.